I'm Steve Gilman, and this is Brand Story, where we help you build stronger, more sustainable brands by sharing insightful conversations with brand leaders, marketers, and professional storytellers. My guest today is Rand Fishkin.
My one worry, my fear is that people who are trying to build something more, you're trying to sell an actual product or service and build a brand, a long-term brand relationship over time. If that is your goal, I don't think that tactical set of merely monetizing engagement at the surface level is going to be the way to do it. And so what we think really strongly about, Amanda and I do, whenever we're posting stuff, is not just how many people can I reach and how can I optimize this, but how can I optimize this to reach the right people in the right places with the right message that will actually nudge them to do the right things with our product.
And today we are jumping into part 2 of our 2-part conversation with Rand Fishkin. If you missed part 1, please go back and listen in. To catch you up, Rand is the co-founder and CEO of SparkToro, which is the leading audience research tool that helps marketers discover where their audiences spend time online. Before SparkToro, Rand was the co-founder and longtime CEO of Moz, one of the most influential companies in the SEO industry. Hi, Rand. Welcome to Brand Story. So the thing I wanted to jump into, I think this will be really fun to talk about, is SparkToro. Your company, your tool, and all the things that it does. You know, we talked a lot about zero-click and search and the world of search, but SparkToro is, from what I've seen, just this amazing tool, and it's more of like an audience intelligence company. Can you break down why'd you go down this path?
Sure.
And this tool, and just tell me about it. I'm really curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think Casey and I were both very frustrated. Casey, my co-founder, and I were both very frustrated leaving the world of SEO, that there wasn't a tool to tell you where else you could influence your audience.
Right.
It just seemed frustrating to us. It seemed like a big hole in the market. And we were surprised when we started looking for competitors to find almost nothing. Like, surely there must be a corollary, Steve, to, you remember the book that they take out in Mad Men? I don't know how many people who are listening have seen Mad Men, the television program from a few years ago with John Hamm, about basically the dawn of the modern advertising era and the modern advertising agency. But in one of the first couple seasons, there's an episode where the team from the ad agency pulls out a giant binder, and they tell I think it's the executives from, maybe it's Ford or Chrysler, one of the big car companies who they're pitching in the show. They tell them, hey, your audience is in these places, all right? Like they watch these TV shows and they listen to these radio programs, and here's how we're going to hit them. I think there's a mention of Life magazine.
Yeah.
But that binder was a real thing in the 1950s and 60s, probably all the way up to the 90s, right? An ad agency would have essentially a demographic breakdown of, oh, you want to reach young male Americans who are Black and middle income and haven't yet started a family. Great. Here's the media that you can use to reach those people. And here's the TV shows that you can advertise on. And it's weird that the internet has been around for a quarter century and there isn't a product that does that. That was deeply weird to us. And so that's what led us down that path.
That's great, because it's been a really needed tool. There's a couple out there that are sort of semi like that, like Brandwatch and a couple others.
Yeah, actually, I think Brandwatch is quite good. From my perspective, it's a little more confusing to use, but it's also incredibly full featured. But Brandwatch is crazy expensive. Like, you got to have a ton of money, and you'll have to, you talk to a salesperson there, but you're paying, multiple tens of thousands of dollars a year for a big enterprise subscription. If you're trying to start a website and, reach some people with your e-commerce product, or you're a small agency and you're trying to help some of your clients, there was really nothing. And that's what we wanted to do with SparkToro. So, we wanted a tiny little company. Like, Casey and I have worked in big companies before, companies that grew real big. We wanted something that was going to be sub 10 people forever. And SparkToro is only 3 of us, so that's working out.
That's great. Well, it's an incredible tool.
Oh, thanks.
Like, we love it here. And we're like super interested in just like exploring it like crazy right now. And everybody here in our agency is super into it. So you guys have designed something really special, because you're right, there is a gap. Like, there are the big boy tools that some of the really huge agencies use.
Yeah.
But then there's this gap of just all the tools that got made for search, and all the tools that got made for the kind of attribution and internet-based targeting. But none of these audience tools like SparkToro really exist.
Yeah, I think
It's
been interesting for us because I would say, expected more people to use it, not necessarily pay for it, but definitely more people to use it. And we were surprised when we started interviewing folks. We did some customer research last year. We outsourced that to Asia Rangio from Demand Maven, who did an excellent job, like unbelievably good. You know what her one skill is that blows me away, Steve?
What's that?
She does something that I cannot do, which is that she creates and sits in an uncomfortable silence until the interviewee gives her something amazing.
That's great. That is a skill.
I don't have the, ability. I'm too socialized to create a comfortable environment. And Asia will just sit there. She'll ask a question like, how are you solving the problems of finding your audience online now? And the person will say something like, well, we use Google Analytics and a lot of intuition. I talked to some of our customers. And then they'll stop, and she just waits. She just sits there and stares and waits. And then they'll say, well, I guess, to be honest, the real answer is that it's not a priority for us. Like, my boss doesn't need me to do that, and so I don't do it. Right. And that was the magic. That was the thing that we kept seeing over and over. For the people who use SparkToro, they obviously have that task. Like, they need to know where their audience is, which social accounts they follow, what YouTube channels they're subscribing to, what subreddits are they using, which new search and AI tools are they adopting. All that kind of stuff matters to the people who pay and use us the most. But to a ton of our essentially people who signed up who look like perfect customers for SparkToro but aren't using it, the insight that Asia realized was, no one is tasking them with that responsibility. Essentially, inside the organization, there's no executive or leadership demand that you go find the channels our audience actually pays attention to so we can be present in those places. They just kind of coast.
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy.
It's a little embarrassing.
And, it's reality out there.
Yeah.
I will second that. I've heard that from clients where it's just, you want to do what? Oh, that sounds neat. Like, neat. That's absolutely crucial.
Here's the weird part to me. If I unwind this to my, analogy of my SEO days of like ranking for things in Google, it would be like leadership saying, no, you don't need to look at whichever keywords our audience is searching for. Just like make some content.
Yeah, just put it, doesn't matter.
What?
I know, right? It's the same thing.
Who thinks that way? It's just, but anyway.
It's really strange. I wonder if the world, that as it was with the internet for so long, with targeting keywords and operating a certain way, has made people forget, or made marketers forget, that they need to understand people and behavior.
Look, I honestly think one of the most powerful forces in this world is inertia.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people have done things, people did things away for a while, and then that is just how it's going to be for forever. I was reading an article today about the sort of the subway experience in Japan. And Japan is a very early adopter, super high technology, wealthy country, in many ways massively more futuristic than anything you'd experience in the United States, just on a day-to-day basis as you're visiting and going into restaurants that have actual robots that are delivering your meals, all this kind of stuff. But then you get to the subway and you can't pay with your credit card. You got to use cash to buy a particular physical ticket. That physical ticket,
paper ticket,
gets exchanged for a different physical ticket. You need some identification for the whole process is absolutely wild. If you walk into the New York subway, you just tap your credit card, right? Tap it on the way in, tap it on the way out. Boom, done. No big deal. It did have that. It showed the power of inertia, right? Like, hey, we did things this way for a long time. It's not broken. People are getting on the subway. They're having good trips. Don't change.
It's really interesting how habit or inertia or just resistance to change anchors, groups of people, organizations that really need to be doing something a little bit different. They'll even identify the problem they're having. People, not as many people are riding trains or whatever the problem is. They'll identify it and then go, yeah, we're going to keep doing it the same way.
Whenever people say AI is going to take half of all jobs, I just think to myself, man, computers didn't even take half of all jobs. Like, what are you talking about?
There's still going to be people buying paper tickets.
I wish I could explain to these early adopter, 1% of the 1% of technologists, how resistant to change humanity is, how much they hate it.
Yeah, and I think part of the AI world, and I think it's cool. I think there's going to be tons. There are right now tons of uses, but it is the 1% of 1% that's using it. And the adoption rates, I think the people who develop this stuff are pretty low on the empathy scale anyway. And they just think.
Fantastic point. Absolutely fantastic point.
Programmers, I'm sorry if I'm insulting all programmers in some blanket generalization, but programmers tend not to be the most empathic people. So they design these really super cool tools that the rest of humanity goes, neat, don't want it. I want my paper ticket.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at the most technologically impressive, I don't know, social networks or, or content engines or email marketing systems, and then you look at what actually gets used, they're like, all Instagram is, it's just a photo and you scroll. What do you talk? Come on.
I know it's probably 90% of users are using 4% of its functionality.
That is exactly.
And that's kind of the way it is. But yeah, you guys really, I think it's so interesting how much you've pivoted from what you were doing with Moz to what you're doing with SparkToro, because, the world has changed and you've recognized that. But even your approach to how you're looking at using a tool to reach audiences has almost pivoted to much more of a brand point of view than a performance marketing point of view.
Yeah. I mean, Steve, when I look back over the history of product, services, companies that had success over the last 25 years, the truly embarrassing thing is that maybe ranking for keywords in Google helped a handful of those achieve significant success. But for the overwhelming majority of companies that have really performed well, it is right product, right time, serving the right audience, and building a brand that people know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
That's it. Or I think the other thing that's extremely successful is owning a niche through rent-seeking or what do I want to call it, like government-backed
absolutely
structure, right? Which a lot of that is corruption-based or semi-corrupt based, but
semi-corrupt, getting funding to do something like that. Yeah, and then
Comcast is obviously very successful because they do a lot of shady stuff that no human being would be like, yeah, that should be legal, but it is, and
but it is, and they make a ton of money.
Yeah, right, and they pay senators' campaigns, right, to make sure that no one takes those laws.
That is an interesting business model, isn't it?
It works quite well, but what I want to say is just that I feel a certain amount of guilt, putting forward this idea that SEO for 20 years, right, putting forward this idea that SEO was going to be the game-changing marketing investment, and that if you just rank for enough keywords and get enough traffic to your website, you too can build, billion-dollar brands and companies. And I think the reality is there was lots of opportunity in small niches to build small and successful businesses. And I'm really proud of the people that we helped to do that. But brand is 1,000 times more important.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I've my whole career has been in brand, and tools come and go, and performance marketing has driven me crazy for so long because some of the most important things cannot be measured by a click. And it just can't, and it never will. And that's why some brands that get tons of clicks fail, because it's not really about that. The world's changed. And I had a guest on who's also like one of my favorite people, Will Guidara, who wrote Unreasonable Hospitality.
Oh,
Do you know
yeah.
him? He was on our podcast,
Cool.
and I love him and everything he talks about.
I haven't,
And
I don't actually know him, but I'm very familiar with the book. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy of his book because I think it's about his experience in the restaurant world, and it's about hospitality. But it's really the best book about brand that I've ever read, because it's about that little bit of difference of when a brand goes far enough to please a customer or set of customers so much that they become so incredibly loyal that they're just not going anywhere, and they're going to tell all their friends. And that is success. Like there's so many examples, when you have a good experience with something, you share it with people. When you have a bad experience, you share that bad experience.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder about this. My rough take on the Unreasonable Hospitality, which I agree, great book, wonderful concept, and I love it personally. I think it's, again, something that would be very successful for SparkToro, and a mentality that we do try and embrace. But I have this fear that there are many, many sectors, perhaps even the majority of sectors, where doing those things, right, being incredibly better at product, better at service and customer service, going that extra mile, personalizing things, learning so much about your audience and customers and then serving them, won't actually move the needle at all. And
yeah, I know what you mean.
As an example to this, right? Over the last 2 decades, there have been 10,000 competitors to the Adobe PDF reader.
Right.
I would argue almost every one of them is vastly superior. Massively superior. And so what made Adobe PDF reader dominate and destroy all those other companies? And I would suggest that it was partnerships and integration early on, and then momentum.
Familiarity and habit.
Size, unfortunately.
Scale,
habit, familiarity. Yeah. And so this is one of the things that I want to convey to a lot of marketers who I think struggle to understand, why is my brand, which is doing all these incredible things and a way better product, and all that kind of stuff, why are we not breaking through? And unfortunately, I think one of the challenges that a lot of marketers have is what they really have is a product market problem. Mm-hmm. And their leadership is disguising it as you're not bringing me enough customers.
Man, I love that. That is so true. And differentiating around service or carving out more loyalty with customers because their experience is better is only going to work for certain types of businesses.
Yes.
The more human the business, the more higher the touch, the more that stuff matters so much.
Yeah.
But when you get down to products that are like an internet-based product, it's a totally different game, because the customer service angle and the amount of touch that a consumer will even accept from Adobe or from a competitor of Adobe. I don't want to talk to those guys, and I don't want them to make my life better. I want them to shut up and make me my PDF open easier.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So it's a totally different. It is not universal to all brands, that's for sure. But I do think it is a competitive advantage in certain industries, and certain types of any service-based industry, any high-touch human-based industry, any type of sales, any type of thing that involves a human and a human. Those little intangibles of hospitality and courtesy and going a little bit extra. It's what humans love to buy from other people that they know and trust, period.
Yeah. And they love stories, right? I think this is especially true. It's also especially true when you're talking about consumer segments that are very customized, or where a relatively wealthy person in a relatively wealthy country is spending a considerable amount of money on something that they don't regularly spend money on.
Yeah.
So like airlines, that's relatively wealthy person, relatively wealthy country, but they're doing it all the time. So it's
Right.
much harder to break through. One
is.
extraordinary experience on an airline, actually 100 extraordinary experiences on an airline can be ruined by one bad one very
Right.
easily. And oftentimes it's not even the airline's fault. But wedding planning, you almost never do it. And so that high touch hospitality, service-based approach, it really makes sense. Long story short on this topic, everything in marketing, the answer is always, it depends. The answer here is, it depends.
That is for sure, isn't it? Like, I swear to God, I think we should start a podcast just called It Depends. Because it just always depends.
Yeah.
Like, there are no universal rules. There are no universal concepts. Some relate. You can borrow from, I'm sure Adobe could take something from, an approach with a little bit more hospitality, or maybe one of their competitors could, but they need to know what they're doing in what industry to what people. But that still comes back to understanding your audience, because what it depends on is the audience.
Yeah.
And the environment and the product.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just, so there's one other thing you said at some point. I don't know. I wrote this down and I don't know where I saw it, because I watched a ton of videos with you and I've read your threads and everything. But you were talking about brand over algorithm and about how many marketers, and it drives me nuts because it's very like bro culture, hustle culture stuff. But it's like marketers are so obsessed with gaming platforms and algorithms, when they could be putting their energy into building trust and community. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I want to say I'm guilty of this too. I love optimizing.
Sure.
I think weirdly enough, one of the, I don't know if it's genetic or not. My dad was an obsessive optimizer. Unfortunately, came out in lots of unhealthy ways. And I think I've tried to channel it into healthier ways, including SEO, right? Became obsessed with how Google's ranking system worked.
Tons of optimization.
Trying to get to the top of that. Nowadays, I do still do a lot of optimizing around my social media content, trying to find, that right video that catches people just at the right point, diagnosing why other things aren't working, figuring out why some email deliverability goes up and down. I'm really interested in that stuff. And then video games. Like I get obsessed with optimizing things inside of video games, whatever your character or something is supposed to do. And I get it, right? I have a lot of empathy for people who also want to game those systems. What I would say, though, is there's gaming the system in a surface level way only, which is essentially, I got the visibility and vanity metrics to be quite high. And then there's gaming and optimizing for those systems that earns you a real life return. And those two things are different.
Yeah, they really are. Maybe there's a big difference between gaming and optimization.
Yeah.
Because I think when you're optimizing, maybe your intentions are a little bit more pure, or a little bit more like you're trying to get an actual better result. I think when people, because I've seen a lot of marketers try to game algorithms just to be able to show the vanity metric, and then they're done. They're satisfied. I did it and I showed it and I'm done.
Yeah.
But there's no value. It's empty.
Yeah, you have to be able to think all the way through end to end the return that you will receive from the engagement that you've gotten. So for example, I saw a great example of this over the weekend, which was an AI generated series of videos that showed what appeared to be a sharp chef's knife cutting through sort of fake gelatin mold versions of raspberries and oranges and grapefruits. It looked almost plausibly real, but with kind of a sci-fi twist to it. And the article, the person who'd written the article about this account, which had created all of these videos and then put them up. Well, an AI created the videos. I think it was Google's VEO system or whatever.
VO, yeah.
And, noted that in the matter of just a few weeks, they had amassed, 250,000 followers. I think this was on Instagram and TikTok, and which sounds really impressive. I don't have a 250,000 followers on either of those platforms. I think I maybe have 10,000 followers on Instagram, and I don't post anything work related. But what I would argue is, what do they do for you? Now that you have a 250,000 people, right, who are like, ooh, I really like this weird sci-fi fake fruit cutting video. It has kind of an ASMR, auditory thing to it. So what? Like, what are you going to do with that, man? And
I think there's a ton of what are you going to do with that man out there right now.
I feel exactly the same way when I see sort of the LinkedIn bro who's like, I made $30 million with my first company, but my biggest mistake was blah, blah, and they use the sort of same formats over and over. And I look at those and I think, yeah, you've gotten followers, you've gotten comments, you got engagements and likes. Yeah, maybe you can sell a few of your courses, and those people are going to pretty quickly figure out it's a scam, right?
Yeah, and that it's empty, that it's basically like someone chucking marshmallows at your head.
Yeah, it's...
you might show up because it's a novelty for a while.
But it's hollow.
But then you're done.
Yeah,
it is hollow. It's like, I don't know if you watch or I'm sure you've heard of the thing, the Diary of a CEO company. And that guy has built an incredible thing because his podcasts and all the podcasts they put out are adding value. They're adding some real tangible value to people's lives because they're all educational. And they have a formula, and they're really good at it. But at the end of the day, they're adding actual real value.
Well,
and that's different than just like, look at my system I did this thing and then I did this. And by the way, at the end of this, you won't be able to do shit.
I mean,
like,
or you'll also be able to sell courses to people, right? It's a pyramid scheme.
Man.
Look, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. Like if your sense of self is strongly fulfilled by just being visible to lots of people, right? And what you really want is sort of fame over money.
Yeah.
Go for it. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's okay. I think that I don't want to make a pejorative comparison because I think quite highly of sex work and I think it's a wonderful thing, but like it's sort of the OnlyFans model. It's like, great, go get it, right? If what you're doing is I'm going to make this thing which doesn't provide any sort of downstream value beyond the aesthetic and consumption, and then you can make some money off of that, like you do you, right? Monetize engagement and attention. What the hell else is Google and Meta and TikTok doing? They are monetizing attention. So who am I to stand here and say, wow, those companies accomplished something amazing, but you TikTok star, OnlyFans person, guy who cuts fruit on LinkedIn, like you don't get to do those things. You don't get to monetize attention. And I'm going to, say that you're worse than them. No way. But my one worry, my fear is that people who are trying to build something more real makes it sound like a values judgment. And what I really mean is you're trying to sell an actual product or service and build a brand, a long-term brand relationship over time. If that is your goal, I don't think that tactical set of merely monetizing engagement at the surface level is going to be the way to do it. And so what we think really strongly about, Amanda and I do, whenever we're posting stuff, is not just how many people can I reach and how can I optimize this, but how can I optimize this to reach the right people in the right places with the right message that will actually nudge them to do the right things with our product. Like, come to SparkToro and don't just, sign up for a free account because you're like, oh yeah, I heard this was good. Be like, oh, wait, Rand said I can learn where my audience pays attention. And I really care about which social networks are most used by interior designers in Los Angeles because I need to make the case to my client about which platforms we're going to prioritize. Fantastic. Like, I love that, thinking all the way through and using the product to solve a real business problem. That makes me so happy versus someone said SparkToro was cool. Let me sign up for an account.
Yeah. Then that customers, they may stay, but if you're not solving a problem for them, then they're probably there and gone.
Yeah.
Which is kind of almost like it's almost like, while you were saying that, I love that. I was thinking about just, how many people have gotten the attention economy incorrectly, or I don't even know if incorrectly is right. They've just misinterpreted it.
Yeah.
And, or maybe they're just doing it differently because it works for them. It's like, how far are you going to go through what the concept of the attention economy? So for you, for instance, you put out a lot of content, but there's a through line to it, to what you're providing and the help you're giving, where a lot of times and so you're using the attention economy, you're using the ability to get people's attention by offering good content, so that X, the attention isn't the X, but for some people it is.
Yeah.
That's where they stop.
I have
Fine.
Steve, I mean,
but I think what happens is it makes everyone think that attention is the X. Which is crazy making, because attention isn't the X for everybody. And if you think it is, damn.
Well,
that's going to, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, if you think that's the solution, shoot.
Yeah. Attention for its own sake is rarely as fulfilling as you think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it does.
Especially if you add a goal, but that's really where you think you stop with marketing.
Yeah.
I
will
you can get tricked into that.
I don't know if this affects you too. I don't know. Maybe it affected you when you were younger. It affected me a lot when I was younger. But
sure.
I wanted people to pay attention to me for not just my marketing insights, right?
Yeah.
There was a long period of time, probably 10 or 15 years, where I thought that I was smart, talented person who had things figured out. And so people should pay attention to me, not just about, whatever my marketing content and how I can help their businesses, but also about, life advice and politics and hobbies and interests and movies and television shows. And, I wanted to be more like a celebrity, where people pay attention because you're famous, rather than they pay attention to you so that you can help them accomplish something or solve a problem. And it has taken me a long while to sort of relax and become comfortable with the idea that that's never going to be me, and that it's a bad goal, that overall it's a bad goal, that fame is not fun and it is not enjoyable, and having people pay attention to you for reasons apart from you helping them solve a problem is a very hollow, emotion siphoning life. I read about and I talk to people who are professional influencers, professional creators. We have a good number of friends who are professional actors. Such a hard life.
Yeah.
It's so now I try to be, I had to consciously push myself to be fulfilled by accomplishing the mission and the task and building the brand and helping people accomplish their problems, rather than, hey, look, lots of people engaged with me, I don't know, shitting on the US president, whatever it was.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I think to only certain personalities, attention is satisfaction, and it's one of the most misused. I mean, obviously, you just mentioned the president. Talk about somebody misusing attention.
Sure, right?
It can be very negative when people, celebrity and just getting raw attention.
No, that narcissism is dangerous.
Yeah, the way you have to behave to get it, and who you have to become just to get that much raw attention, is a very slippery slope. And and that's what I always worry about with people who are influencers or going down that path. When attention is the goal, the real actual goal, stated or unstated, that's pretty empty. And you might get to the end of that, not be so happy with where you are, Yeah.
If you want to be Mr. Beast, just declare it. Like at least say, my goal is I'll do anything for more followers, more views, more engagement. That's all I am. I am focused on that as a goal and a metric. And then that really simplifies your sort of structure. And if that's not your goal, if you're a marketer who works for a brand, helps clients, is building your own business or practice, be very careful of this same dangerous slippery slope that I and the president and a bunch of other people have fallen into, right? Which is attention for its own sake. And
people like listening to me, therefore I'm important.
Yeah.
It's hard. So let me ask you I'm going to move on to like kind of our ending section, because literally I could talk to you all day.
Oh,
it's so much fun talking to you.
Also, Steve, I did want to bring up one thing with you. Did you?
Yeah.
Speaking of attention economies and like, this monetization and stuff, someone put up a post, which was relatively popular on LinkedIn this morning when I saw it for the first time, saying that they wish that my videos, instead of being 5 minutes, which they said was very hard to grasp for their sort of like ADHD and how they function and digest information, they were hoping for, Rand, could you please make them 30 seconds?
No. How?
Well,
what?
Here's what I thought to myself.
Yeah.
When you and I have a conversation, right? This long, meandering conversation with all sorts of fascinating nuggets and little pieces. I wondered, and I wanted to ask you about this with your guests. Do you find that your listeners and audience engage, 10 times, 50 times, 100 times more with the 30-second, 90-second, 3-minute clips that you take and put on social? And then that's how the sort of most loyal ones come to the show?
I don't know if we can connect the dots that clearly to how they get there, but the most loyal listeners tend to listen to about 85 to 90% or finish an entire episode, regardless of length. So sometimes we get their attention with a clip because they'll be like, oh, that guest is interesting. And then they end up on the podcast and maybe it fits their needs, maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's someone that's just looking for 30 seconds of compacted knowledge and they don't want a conversation like this. But the people who learn from conversations like this stay and then finish these episodes, which just blows me away. It makes me feel, honestly, that's my favorite metric, is how much of an episode are people listening to?
Yeah.
And when they finish it, then I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right. Because that's, that's why I'm here. And I think that's really cool. The different lengths of clips I have not seen. I've seen, from what we look at, all kinds of different lengths work, depends on the guest and what they're saying. And since our guests span all these different topics that kind of get encapsulated into brand and brand story, that it really is very unusual which guests where we'll have episodes that just blow up, and I yet have been able to perfectly like optimize for it or even analyze it to where, because it's a very human thing.
It is. My understanding, especially with podcasts, is that episodes that blow up tend to be the ones where people recommend them.
Yeah.
And then algorithms mimic people. So YouTube or, Apple or whatever, YouTube says, hey, a bunch of people who watch this sent it to other people. We should put this, in the up next for a whole bunch of people.
It seems like that's what happens. Yeah. And it's not a very predictable thing. So some episodes that I thought, well, this one will be fun. Like this will just be neat. I'll do it. And it ends up being one of our most popular, And sometimes that's the really weird thing is sometimes that's like a really dry, deep dive into a brand topic. And other times it's because I decided to do the point of view of like Las Vegas's most prolific food influencer, and those are so different, but they both have to do with brand.
Yeah.
So one was an author that's talking about brand assemblage and how everything fits together in little pieces and signals. And then the other is about how a food influencer actually lives and works every single day. Human beings are complicated in what they want to learn. Do you know what I mean? I'm just putting it out there and hoping people enjoy it.
I don't know. I keep coming back to, I don't think AI has taken these jobs, friends.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't see it.
I'd like to see AI have this conversation. That's what I want to see. So let me ask you a few ending questions because I don't want to keep you all day. Even though if you want to stay, we could keep doing this all day. So you're an entrepreneur for so long now, and I've been an entrepreneur my whole life since I was like 14 and a half. Where's the line between fear and adventure for you?
You know what I found in my research for Lost and Founder and in myself is that many founders, not all of them, but many founders are actually low risk tolerance people.
Yeah. Yep.
And they feel, which I feel, that we cannot give up control to another person, another entity, and let our career and life be ruled by this outside force that we may not be able to influence, right? So I go to work at whatever, Apple or Google or Microsoft or something, and my boss or the macroeconomic conditions or the decisions that the CEO makes can destroy my job in an instant. Like, no, I'm gonna
have more control than that.
I need that control in order to feel safe. And so even though entrepreneurship feels risky from the outside, I think to a lot of us, it feels like the only risk-free choice.
I love that answer. I don't get that very much because I ask so many different people. And, someone who's like the CEO or the CMO of a big ad agency, like I asked Kristen Cavallo, who used to be the head of the Martin agency. And her answer was totally different because she's a CEO running this big company. Yeah. But the company's owned by this huge organization. But entrepreneurs, I've always found, I thought that was one of my favorite answers I've ever gotten, Rand. That was so cool. Because I really do think, everyone thinks that entrepreneurs are super risk takers, but I think we're really good at coping with change and managing risk.
Yeah. And if you look at vectors like how much they tend to save versus spend as a percent of their income, and how much they take high risk activities, so speeding on highways or
it's a totally different
going shark diving profile. Or something. Yeah. No, it turns out, like people in what you would consider very risk-free jobs tend to be those folks, right?
Yeah. And the people who are entrepreneurs tend to be very like a little risk averse and very thoughtful about what they're doing. What's a trait of yours that you used to think of as a weakness, but you've learned to value?
Oh my gosh. There was a time, I think I started out thinking this as a strength, came to believe that it was a weakness for many years, and now I've changed my mind back. And that is that I only ever want to work with people that I deeply love and care about. And that was something I sort of got beat out of me during my years trying to build a bigger company. I was told it was unrealistic. I should, as the CEO, you shouldn't even be involved in sort of lower level hiring decisions as you get to hundreds of people, those kinds of things. And, if you have personal relationships with some of your staff, other people on the staff are going to feel jealous and that it's not right. Nope. I don't believe any of that anymore. And I don't practice that. I have a close personal friendship with Casey and Amanda from SparkToro. I have close personal friendships with every one of the founders at Snack Bar Studio. And I have close personal relationships with the two folks I work with at Alert Mouse, which is like my other company that I haven't talked about. Yeah. And I, very frankly, I'm super done with this idea of performance of people is all that matters. And you should overlook your personal relationships. Instead, I've just decided, too bad. I don't care if the business suffers because the personal relationship was put first.
Hallelujah, man.
So what? Hallelujah. It's just money.
Yeah. And the quality of your life.
Yeah.
I'm glad that tech didn't beat the empathy out of you.
But that's
because dude, I mean, we don't have, okay. I think we're going to have to do another episode just about Lost and Founder, your book, because I'm starting to read it.
Yeah.
And all of the misconceptions of entrepreneurism and how to make money and how to run a company and how to be a heartless bastard come from tech. And it's like, you actually don't have to be a heartless bastard in business to succeed. As a matter of fact, much the opposite.
What is success?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
The problem
How
is
do you want to
what
live?
someone else externally defined success as somehow meaning, Steve, that we are supposed to maximize the speed at which we make the most possible money.
Ugh.
And that is a broken, morally bankrupt, ethically devoid concept.
Isn't it?
It's disgusting.
Yeah, and then what do? End up in a box at the end and have just a pile of money around you? What's the point?
It's not fun. I don't know how many folks I suspect because of who you are and these conversations and stuff, you have probably encountered, as Geraldine and I have, many folks who are worth, and have made tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. We even somehow stumbled into a world where we know a couple people who've crossed $1 billion.
Yeah.
With almost no exceptions, there is a wacky gap between, and it's somewhere in the like $50 to $100 million range, where people start losing their humanity and simultaneously they stop being happy. Like the thing that I wish was talked about, how they talk about like, oh, more money doesn't equal more happiness at this level. Yeah. So somewhere in that, few $1 million range, more money doesn't equal more happiness. But please, will someone talk about how once you get to somewhere between 60 and $80 million in net worth, unhappiness becomes pervasive.
Yeah. I think there's something incredibly human about some part of you is rejecting hoarding. When you have way too much, then what?
Yeah.
Then what are you going to protect it and be fearful? Are you now on another strata where you don't relate to real human beings? I mean, there's so many issues with that.
Yeah,
that I think are playing out all around us.
There's gross stuff. I'll tell you, man. Like when Moz sold, when my first company sold, I had left. This isn't an Austin founder because it happened a few years later. I had left the board. I had stepped down the year before. The company finally sold, and we get this insanely giant check, that we were never expecting. And I full on had panic attacks about, are we going to turn into shitty people?
Quick, let's give some of it away.
That is exactly
really.
So Geraldine and I, crazy. So we sat down. I remember I was feeling this so intensely.
Yeah.
We sat down after the check had cleared. We'd come back from a trip. This was like 2021, 22. Right after like COVID lockdowns had ended, and we were vaccinated and stuff. And we were at our dining room table. I remember just having this existential sort of fear crisis about ourselves. And we just brought out cards and took out our checkbook, and we wrote, and we went through the list of all the people who had gotten sort of screwed in the transaction. Like, hey, this person had been at Moz 5 years. They had this much stock. This is what that ended up being worth. That's crap. What's the maximum? Okay, we're allowed to give, whatever the federal tax limit is, like $16,000. Great. We're writing a $32,000 check to this person and mailing it to them. Let me tell you about the best money I ever spent in my life.
Right.
Oh my God.
That's great.
We got a few replies from those of people who were like, I was able to quit my job and take care of my mom who was undergoing cancer therapy. I, was able to like pay for essentially like my kids' education. Yeah. Wow.
Man, what a great thing. That makes me happy that you did that.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, compared to a lot of these other people, we have like a 10th, 1/100th, 1/1000th as much money, right? But
I just don't know what people think they're going to do with it.
Yeah, what are you doing?
It's so crazy.
I way overspend. I am a terrible overspender. I see the $9 blueberries at the grocery store. I'm like, well, I really want blueberries, so I guess I'm paying $9. I know I should wait until they're $4.50, but I want them today.
Yeah, and yet still you're fine just people amassing wealth, like that's the goal of a good life. I don't know what that is. So last question, and I will let you go. What is this chapter of your life? What would you call it?
Oh man, it's so hard it's so hard to see a time period clearly while you're in it. It's only after that you realize what was really going on there. But I think of this as a phase where I am exploring possible futures. One of those futures is SparkToro. That's where I put, I would say, 80, 90% of my effort and attention these days. And that is in service of seeing what that company can become. Could it be the case that in 5 years, 10 years, everybody will do audience research and SparkToro will be a primary place that they do that? And, will be this wonderful, tiny little independent company that built this little tool that everybody loves. That would be a beautiful thing. And it's okay if that doesn't happen. It's okay if SparkToro is only a couple $1 million a year business and, maybe it spits off a little bit of dividends, but it stays real small and I bring my work to hours down on it and Snack Bar Studio really takes off, right? And that video game becomes a hit and I double down on that and I spend more of my days doing it rather than sort of hiring other people to do those executive types of functions. And maybe it's Alert Mouse that takes off. Maybe Indie Founders, the event that I run with Peldy, maybe that really takes off. It's an explore possible futures. It's like, what might be? Let's open all these doors and put it out there, because right now I am healthy enough to be able to, work on all these projects. I have the network for it. We have the funding for it. It's this special time frame. And then let's find out what, the next decade or two will be. And whatever it is going to be okay. Man,
I got to say, I love that. That's one of the best answers to that question I've gotten, because what a cool place to be. Like with everything you've been through and change and the sale of Moz and all this, I think one or all of those are going to work out for you. I'm here for it. I can't wait to see.
The day-to-day is quite taxing, right? Like it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But there's this, I think, because the promise of each of these things is interesting, it's fun, it's self-directed.
It's variety.
There's lots of variety. Yeah. I rarely ever feel burnt out the way I did all those years at Moz.
I bet. It's interesting. You keep it smaller. It's a lot more entrepreneurial, and I bet it's a lot more personal.
It's more connected. Everything is super personal, right? Even I'm like, you know what? I want something real quirky for this brand. You know what? I want to make this more in this direction, and I don't have to worry about whether that maximizes a venture investor's return.
Yeah, man. Okay, so thank you, sir, for being here and talking with me at length. And also, for the audience, we recorded half of this and we lost internet for the first time in the show. And so Rand was nice enough to come back and keep recording and make this episode even better. And I think this is going to be one of my favorite episodes. This was so much fun for me.
Well, Steve, I hope we get to do it again. Dude, you're just a delight to talk to.
Thank you,
a wonderful human. And I wish you and your team in this show all the very best.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I would love to do it again. There's only about 5 topics that we didn't even get to dive into. So I'll reach out. I've had multiple guests back.
Wonderful.
Because once I just get interested in talking to somebody, there's so much I want to ask you about your book. There's so much that I would love to talk to you about your journey. So I think we'll come back and do this again if you're willing. So
sounds wonderful.
This was fun.
Yeah, can't wait.
All right, man. Well, I get back to your incredible busy day and all the things you're doing, and I will talk to you again soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Appreciate the time. Want to hear more inspiring stories? Subscribe on your preferred podcast app so you don't miss an episode. And if you like what we're doing, please rate, review, and share. It's the best way to support us. Thank you for listening to Brand Story.